welcome to the OMFL Jacksonville Jaguars review. I'm your host, Mike Fleury, and in this episode, we will finish the last of the 3 re-records as we cover weeks 9 and 10 of the season, catching us up to date finally. First, I want to talk about this week's Press Pass Live. One of the things that Nate covered while talking about the Jaguars in this particular episode, he was talking about, or answering a question rather, about teams that had impressed and not quite disappointed, but underwhelmed this season. And one of the teams he brought up as underwhelming was, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he talked about how he wished we would be more consistent. And he hit the nail on the head. Now, I don't know how many games he watches of ours, other than the Niners game, which he and I talked about. But inconsistency has been the bane of this season. Now, I've brought it up multiple times to this point, but every loss we've had has been a one-possession game. And that right there kind of encapsulates the inconsistency of this team. You look at the games, and starting offensively, with no run game to speak of, we are completely unable to control the flow of the clock and maintain a consistent offense. ETN has been underwhelming for a 90-some-odd overall superstar X Factor, and when I can't control the flow of the game through my run game, even trying to be a more balanced offense and pass the ball nearly as much as I run it, it makes it very difficult for me to remain consistent and put up the points needed to win. That said, my last, let's say, 6 games, 21 points, 17, 37, 30, 20, 21. I'm in that generally 20 to 30 point range, which usually would be enough for my defense, who gives up about 19.5 points a game, ranked 4th in the league. But my defense has also struggled with consistency, specifically the consistency of creating turnovers. Turnovers create turnovers. And what I mean is, when some owners in this league throw an interception, they see it as maybe internally as like a net loss of a possession that they have to make up for down the road, which caused them to tend to make more mistakes and throw more interceptions, trying to fit passes in to smaller and smaller windows to get back what they have already lost. What this creates, if you've ever watched the movie The Replacements, there's a scene where Keanu Reeves talks about quicksand. It is basically that concept, where you just, one thing goes wrong, and then another, and before you know it, you're in over your head. And that can happen really quickly with teams, and usually turnovers start that. You look at the Browns game we're going to cover is a good example, but the Seahawks game is a good example of the inconsistency of this for my team. In 4 of the 5 losses, so we're going to take the Niners game out of it. The Niners game, I had 2 interceptions in that game, but my offense just couldn't get anything going. I think I had 10 points total as an offensive unit. When you take that game out of it, I've had 1 interception in 4 losses. If I can't create turnovers, I can't create short fields. Short fields put pressures on their defense. They give up more points. Giving up more points makes you feel like you need to get those points back because you've just given them up off your own turnover, which creates pressure. Pressure causes mistakes. Mistakes snowball. This is something that I did really well last season that I am not doing this season. And that has caused a lot of the inconsistencies that we're talking about with this team, which rolls us right into our first game of the week against the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle game was a game that, frankly, I should have won. Now, let's start with that phrase, should have won. It is possible for both teams to be able to say that they should have won a game. It is not saying, because I say I should have won a game, does not mean the other team didn't deserve it. Both teams can lay claim to should have won. In this instance, I should have beaten the Seahawks. Now, I've had 5 losses this year. 2 of them I would say I could have won. The Raiders game and the Niners game were close enough that, given another shot, maybe I could have figured something out and beaten them. They won the game. That's what the scores will tell you. But I was in those games and I could have won them. The Bills, Rams, and Seahawks are games I should have won. Now, the Bills and the Rams, I had the ball down less than 7 points at the end of the game. When you have the ball down by less than a touchdown at the end of a game with time remaining, you should probably win that game. That's not saying they shouldn't have, because they made the plays. I didn't execute. But I had the ball. And, by the way, the Rams kicked a field goal on 3rd down with like a minute and a half left to give me more than enough time to come back. They made a mistake. I did not capitalize. Having the ball down 6 points to the Bills and 2 points to the Rams means that it is on me to score those points, and I should score those points. I should have won those games. Now, had I won those games, they easily could have also said that they should have won those games. It was a tight game. Neither team really outplayed each other. Neither team outclassed each other. It was a really close game. This is one of those games where either team could have said it. I'm saying it because I lost. Also, this is my show, so it'd be weird if either of them were on here saying that they should have won. The Seattle game is slightly different. In this one, it came down to about 4 plays. So I'm probably going to show you these plays as I go through them. So here we go. The first play. It is a route that I tend to look to the left side first, then I move to the right. I look at my underneath route, then my deep route, and then I move over. Now, I looked underneath, covered, I looked deep. This game does not call pass interference. Nate has talked about that a lot the last couple weeks on his stream and in chat. The game refuses to call pass interference. I had 2 DBs riding Brian Thomas Jr. upfield, and they were still close enough down like towards the line that I knew Fredrickson wasn't open either, so I couldn't go to either of my top 2 receivers, so I turned to the right. The problem is, as soon as my eyes turned right, Brian Thomas Jr. got let go and was gone. If I continue to look left, or if they don't get to pass interfere my top 2 receivers, basically, out of the play, that is a touchdown, or at least a deep play, but probably a touchdown. If you watch the play through, you'll see Brian Thomas is basically even with the safety, and he's gone. But because they're able to hold him in place, I have to go to the right side of the field. The next play is, I believe, a corner, or no, maybe a deep out, or possibly deep in. It's either way, the receiver gets to the sideline. Now, this is a pass that I hate in Madden, because I don't feel like the corner playing where he is, I believe probably in like a purple zone, underneath, should be able to make this play. I'm trying to throw the ball up the sideline upfield to give Brian Thomas Jr. a chance to make a catch and run. But the game doesn't allow you to do that. What it does is it throws the ball exactly where he's standing so the corner can break back and get the ball. Interception. Now he gets the ball with like a minute or so left to play in the first half. Instead of a touchdown on the first play and tying the game at 10, now he has a chance to go up. Then, a couple plays later, he throws a pass right above Jair Brown's head. His corner makes an unreal play. Jair Brown doesn't lift an arm on a ball thrown right above his head. The ball goes over him, right to a receiver for a touchdown. So instead of being tied at 10, I am now down 17-3. Later in the game, the final of the 4 plays, he throws a pass into the end zone. I'm down at this point 7 points again. Throws a pass into the end zone, into double coverage. I have a player jump up. If they catch this pass, if Jair catches the pass and intercepts it, he's probably gone. If this guy catches this ball, he is definitely gone. It's a pick 6 that would have tied the game with about 3 or so minutes left in the contest. That is 10 points for him when it should have been 14 points for me. Other than those 4 plays, we are completely even. We played a great game. It was completely deadlocked. He played really good to stop my run. We basically, neither of us had much of an offense. His offense was a little more efficient, but generally speaking, these 4 plays are what decided the game. So it's not quite like Madden decided the game in the way that sometimes Madden does, where suddenly your receivers can't catch and no one can block and nothing. This was more of a some breaks fell towards him that didn't get reciprocated back towards me later on, and that ended up deciding the game. Now that happens. That is something that happens. And again, this is one of those, just because I say I should have won this game doesn't mean he didn't deserve to win, because it's one of those situations where 2 teams play really even, and sometimes a little good luck helps you get over the top. This stuff happens all the time in every game. I think the Browns would probably say I had a couple. The Texans might say I had a couple. The Chiefs, same thing. It's totally fine. Just unfortunate, because I felt like we played well enough to win. Probably should have won it, but we didn't, and we move on. It was a really solid game. I haven't spoken about anything about the stats, of course, because that's not why I'm here, apparently. Moving on to the Browns game to end our episode. 21-18 win. It started with us getting 21 points in the first 3 quarters. 21-3 really seemed like we had the game in hand. But this was one of those games where we managed to get a lot of turnovers. It kind of skews our our interception totals for the season, because we had 6 of them. But despite getting the ball so many times, we really couldn't do much. 18 carries for ETN for just 53 yards. Justin Fields, 137, touchdown, interception. Njoku was impossible to stop. So I really had to key on him to kind of end the game. Really tried to keep him bottled up on the last drive, because Cleveland managed to put on 15 points to end in the 4th quarter. And they had the ball back. Because I couldn't run the ball, I couldn't run out the clock. So they got the ball back, and I basically had to just keep an eye on Njoku the entire time, because the previous drive, to bring them within a score, he had like 3 catches. It was insane. I could not do a single thing to stop him. Cooper, 103. Brian Thomas Jr., 3 for 79, but he only had one kind of big play that I didn't really mean to throw to him. I kind of got lucky on that one, simply because there are plays, I don't know if anybody else is like this, but there are plays where I'll look at things and I'll go, okay, there are 4 routes on the field, and I like 2 of them, so I'll run that play. And it's like, I'll take the deep end, and if it's not the deep end, I'll take the drag, and and then there'll be a streak on the field, and it'll be going, and then I'll watch the game back, and I'll see, oh, if I'd been paying attention to the streak at all, I would notice nobody covered him. You know, a lot of times it's my tight end that happens to, where they'll get wide open, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even think to look at them. The play went incomplete, or I threw an interception, and I didn't even think to look in the tight end's direction, simply because they're not my number one or number two read, and I'm not much of a passer. If I get through my first two reads, at that point, I don't know what I'm doing if I can't throw to either one of them. It's kind of what I assume Roger does to DeMarco. Just hit the DeMarco button. Whenever anything else is covered, you're just like, okay, I'll just throw to him, and he's down there. I think it's the Aaron Rodgers quote. I know he's down there somewhere, so I'll just throw it up. So yeah, basically what I do with Brian Thomas Jr. If you cover all the stuff I want to throw to, I'll just hit the button and hope that you're not fast enough to catch him wherever he is. In this case, it actually worked. Most cases, it doesn't. In terms of defense, we had a bunch of sacks, which is frankly unlike us. There was one drive where, or like a set of drives where it seemed like we got 2 sacks every drive to just really disrupt his entire offense. Campbell had 2 interceptions. Clark, I think I called him Chris Phillips in the article I wrote. I'm going to have to fix that. Clark Phillips had 2. Savage had 1. Lattimore had 1. Defensively, it was a great game, minus the fourth quarter. So, hopefully I've got all those screenshots up. And that brings us to the end of the episode. We've covered now all the way up to week 10. I have my Cardinals game scheduled for tomorrow, which is Saturday. We don't have a time yet, but we know we're going to play Saturday. So that's going to be another episode. As soon as I'm done that, I'll film another one because I have a bye week the week after that. So I might as well pump out a kind of a mid-season in week 11 Jaguar review, which would bring us to 10 on the season. So everything after that is gravy. So after the week 11-12 episode, I will probably go 3 weeks, like in-game weeks. So I'll do the Broncos, Colts, Chargers, do an episode then, which will set up the final stretch of the season, which is Titans, Texans, Titans, which, assuming the Titans ever lose again, will set up a clash for the division. I could still make the playoffs without winning the division. It's really weird in the AFC right now. I'm going to try to remember to bring a screenshot for that. But right now, as I'm looking at it, so we have the Bills 7-2, the top wildcard spot, and then the rest of the wildcard spots are like Cleveland 5-4, Baltimore 5-6, we're 5-5, Kansas City's 5-5, the Chargers and the Raiders are 4-5. Basically, there's a huge cluster for the second and third. The New England Patriots 5-5, the Jets are 4-5. There's a huge cluster of teams together, all within like a game of each other, because none of us seem to want to have a winning record. We all want to be 500. It's actually really weird, especially in contrast, like, to, I was going to say in contrast to the NFC, but no, the NFC's basically the same. 6-4, 5-4 are the Seahawks and Rams. The Giants are 6-3, but the Eagles are 5-5. There's only one team with a winning record in the South. That's the Panthers at 5-4. The North 5-5 Packers, and everybody else is kind of having a rough season. So yeah, I guess weirdly the wild card could probably come down to whoever can finish above 500. So we're not out of it. We got some time. So that's how we're gonna film out the rest of the weeks. So, as I said, this wraps us up here. As always, I am your host, Mike Fleury. and I will try to do better next time.